A few people are asking in chat, why do you need a 10-inch? What is a 10-inch for?
If you have to ask.
Like, is it better than other things at things?
Yeah. So here's the deal. Bigger props make more thrust more efficiently. If you think about it, let's start with the idea that you want to fly a certain amount of weight, okay? Maybe that's a 200-gram GoPro or weight. You have a certain amount of weight that you want to fly. And that includes the quadcopter itself. So you're going to start with, I want to fly a 200-gram GoPro. Or maybe you're going to start with, I want to fly an O3 air unit, right? And then you're going to build a quadcopter around the desire to carry that payload, okay? And that's going to include a flight controller, an ESC, video transmitter, a battery, motors, etc. And one of the decisions you're going to make is how much thrust do I need to carry this amount of weight? And that can be based on, like, most people don't think about this explicitly, but that's going to be based on a thrust to weight ratio. So if I have 500-gram quadcopter and I have 500 grams of thrust, that quadcopter will barely even get off the ground at full throttle, right? So in general, you want a thrust to weight ratio of like minimum, say 3-to-1 for a quadcopter. For airplanes, for fixed wings, that thrust to weight ratio can be much lower because they're deriving lift from the wings and the thrust is not directly lifting the aircraft. But for a quadcopter, all of your maneuverability comes from the thrust of the motors. Minimum, say, 3-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio. You can go lower, but it starts to get really difficult to maneuver, and you have to fly really carefully. That's just off the cuff from me. If somebody smart tells you different, you can believe them. You don't have to argue with them. But 3-to-1 is a round number. And maybe as much as 8 or even as high as maybe 10 or 12-to-1 is theoretically possible for like a drone, a multi-rotor. Okay, so you've got a thrust to weight ratio and you've got a weight. Now you have a certain amount of thrust you need to make. Let's say you need to make 1,000 grams of thrust. 4,000 grams of thrust, whatever that number is. There's two ways you can do that. You can spin a big prop slowly. And a big prop, because the props have a larger surface area, it's going to move more air. And the thrust that the prop makes is roughly, maybe actually directly proportional to the amount of air that the prop moves. Okay? Or you can spin a small prop faster. And that small prop is moving less air, but because it's spinning faster, it's moving the air at a higher speed, and therefore it's making the same amount of thrust. Okay? Here's the thing. For reasons which I'm not entirely prepared to explain, it's much more efficient to spin a big prop slowly and to make a certain amount of thrust than it is to spin a smaller prop at a higher RPM and make the same amount of thrust. Okay, so you've got a quadcopter you're designing and you want a certain amount of thrust and you want a certain amount of flight time, okay? At a certain point, let's say you've got a 5-inch drone and you put a heavy camera on it and you put a heavy battery on it and now your flight time is getting terrible. So you put a heavier battery on it and you get a little more flight time, but actually now you're super high in the throttle, your motors are super hot, everything's falling apart. You go, oh, I need to go from 5 inches to 7 inches, and now everything's better because you're making more thrust more efficiently. And that same thing happens with a 7-inch. You put a heavier camera, you put a bigger battery, whatever. Bop, 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 bop. Now your 7-inch drone. Your motors are super hot. You have to be at 60% throttle just to get into the air. You have no power reserve. Every time you touch the throttle, the battery's sagging out. Your flight time isn't as long as you want. Now you go up to an 8-inch or a 9-inch or a 10-inch, and etc. That's why we're going to bigger props. We go to bigger props because we want to carry more weight and or fly for a longer time. Now, as an interesting sort of opposite day approach to that, because if you tell me I want to fly for 40 minutes, I might say, okay, I'm going to build you a 10-inch drone with a 10,000 milliamp hour 6S battery or whatever. Or I might say, I'm going to build you a 200 gram 4-inch drone or something ridiculously. Okay, not 200 grams. That's okay. I'm pulling numbers out of my ass. I got a little crazy. I'm going to build you an ultra light 4-inch drone. That's going to be so lightweight that it can fly for 40 minutes, right? And so it's not sort of one path up that mountain, but a lot of times when people are flying larger birds, it's because they want to fly for a long time and they want to carry a certain amount of weight. And the way to do that is always to go to larger props. How's that for an answer? Pretty good answer? I think it's a pretty good answer. So why don't we all just run 10-inch birds? Right? That's the next question. Okay, well, I like to fly for a long time. Doesn't everybody? Let's just everybody fly a 10-inch. Well, why stop there? Let's everybody fly a 13-inch. Why stop there? Let's everybody fly a 15-inch. Why stop there? Let's everybody fly a 22-inch. Why stop there? Let's all fly big 25-pound agricultural lifter drones with 24-inch, 36-inch carbon fiber props, and they'll fly for an hour and a half. Because obviously there's other things in that equation. Bigger drones are more expensive. They're more dangerous. They're harder to fit in your freaking car. When they crash, it hurts a lot more physically if they crash into you or your property, or just because you just destroyed a $5,000 drone, right? They're not as maneuverable. If you want to go fast and make sharp turns, you don't want a 10-inch prop. But smaller drones with a more centralized mass will be more nimble. So there's trade-offs there as well. All right. Could you suggest a 10-inch frame with 25mm standoffs to fit the Avatar GTN motors, KV capable 8S battery? Okay, so one of my favorite 10-inch, and I don't have a ton of recommendations for a 10-inch frame. So if the chat has recommendations for a really great 10-inch frame that I should look at, put them in the chat. And Blunty, if you'll pin those in purple, and we'll look at them, and we'll take a look. But whenever somebody asks me about a 10-inch frame, the one that comes to my mind is the Project 399 Super G. And I haven't flown this frame, but I know that Project 399 makes damn good sort of 7-inch, 10-inch big frames. So I always feel safe recommending this frame just because I trust the company that makes it. Now, what's the placement? What's the spacing on the standoffs? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If these standoffs don't work for you, throw them out and buy new standoffs. What do you want? 25mm aluminum standoffs. Boom. Done. Just buy them. Easy. Okay, it's a little annoying, but buy the frame you want. And if the standoffs aren't the right size, just buy new standoffs. Come on. It's the future. We could just do these things. So I don't know if that spacing will work for you. Like you can see, the other thing you can see about this frame is it's a split deck design, which means that in the back here, maybe there's not as much room as you might prefer. In the front here, maybe there's not as much room as you might prefer. I don't know if you're going to be able to fit that VTX in there. I think you can, but I'm not sure. Just take a look, though. Some frames that other people are suggesting are the FR10 quadcopter frame. Let's take a look. FR10 from CNC Drones. Ooh. Yeah, the thing with these 10-inch frames is you really want to trust that the arms are going to be solid. They're not going to get a lot of vibration. Like, it's easy to just take an arm and stretch it to 10 inches and go, see, I did it. But building a 10-inch frame that actually flies good and doesn't have vibrations, that's the challenge. And it's not as simple as just make thick carbon, be strong. So, FR10? I'm digging the front end on the FR10. Looks like it's designed to mount a GoPro Session, although presumably you could mount other types of action camera with a different 3D print. Oh, and here, yeah. And it mounts the FPV camera up top and the digital action camera down below so that it's the HD camera is more centered. That's really slick. Very cool. We got a recommendation here for the Axis Flying Manta 10. Good compact frame. Looks like there's not a ton. Oh, look how they're mounting the antennas for the VTX. Now that's a bind and fly version, but presumably you can get that 3D print for the frame. I dig how they're mounting these antennas, because a lot of times on these longer frames, it's difficult getting you don't want the antennas in the back, because that's going to mess with your GPS and your control link, and it can be difficult to get the camera. If the VTX is mounted all the way in the back, the camera wire is not long enough to get to the front. So what they've done is they've mounted the VTX up front. They've gone, just screw it. I like that a lot. That's very nice, very innovative. Nazgul X10. Now I will say, I had bad results with a 13-inch iFlight frame. It was with their X-Class frame, to be fair, so not a typical frame. But their X-Class frame, there was a ton of problems with vibrations, and I could not get the quad to even, it could barely hover, and as soon as I touched the throttle, it would try to fly away. And I tried everything, and then eventually I gave up and I swapped the frame out, and suddenly everything was fine. So I kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. The Nazgul 10 frame, I also know the Helion 10 frame, people are having trouble with vibrations and jello, so I'm a little bit wary here, but the Nazgul 10 people are recommending, at least one person is recommending, and the Nazgul frames have been quite good. The Chimera 7 is a solid frame that nobody seems to complain about, and this seems like kind of an adaptation of that. Now, I don't know the name. The GepRC Mark IV 10. This is GepRC's 10-inch frame. GepRC have done a pretty good job of just scaling up their 5-inch frame to larger sizes. I like the fact that this one comes with struts. That's going to add rigidity. I like the open design. And it's a good price, $60. I haven't personally flown this one. I've flown their 7-inch stuff, though, and it's very good. Let's see. Somebody's recommending Bad for Life's 10-inch frame.
The third link there.
Is it the third? The SA10 F17. What do we got here? I can barely see this one. Interesting. Looking kind of like a traditional freestyle. Oh, God. All right. Come on. Do better. Do better. Do better. Don't do that. Build better. Wow. Embarrassing. Cut the wires to the right length. Ah, you're killing me. Whoever did that, slap yourself on the back of the hand a couple times as penance. Open source frame. Very cool. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple more. Foxeer Aura 10. Foxeer Aura 10, the Foxeer Aura line has struck me as they're really trying to be innovation. Innovation. They're really trying to be innovative, and like this is a very expensive frame at $145. I'd really want to be convinced that it was like good and worth the price compared to some of the other ones we've looked at. But I like this got struts. RMQ Yeti 10. That'll be the last one. RMQ Yeti 10. Yeti
Chat seemed to take this as a challenge to name every 10-inch frame.
Are people recommending good ones, or are they just
I don't know,
linking
but I think we've gotten most 10-inch frames that exist.
I can't find this frame. RMQ Yeti 10, if you can find one. That's a tumbler. Okay. All right, guys. We're gonna wrap that section up. Blunty, that'll make a good one for the live stream clips channel. Oh, of course. Of course, we can't leave out of the lineup Chris Rosser, friend of the channel, Chris Rosser's AOS 10-inch frame. And I'll tell you what, Chris, if I'd have left you out, you would have been annoyed at me. You would be too courteous to bring it up, but I think you would have been like, hey, Bardwell, how come I got left out? Somewhere in the back of your mind. I'm going to do it, but I'm also going to shit all over your frame because I dislike one of the design choices you made. So maybe you will wish I had left you out. I hate this kind of strut design in a frame. I know it has advantages compared to flat arms, especially as the arms get longer. You need rigidity, and you have to go to really thick carbon fiber to get the rigidity you need. Whereas these these trusses have rich. Oh. Can I just see a picture? A picture of. Ah! Where to buy CNC drones? Did it take me to the product page for that frame? No, it's just a search result for AOS. I don't know. I want to buy the AOS 10. Okay, where to buy? This is not the product page for the AOS 10. It's just a search results for what I don't know. Okay, I'm going to search for AOS 10. Okay, well, we're not going to take that as a phrase. We're going to just give you everything with AOS in it, so the search result has no meaning. What if I put it in quotes? Come on. No, screw you. Where to buy? Don't know. Still haven't bought it. Oh my God, here it is. The AOS 10. Yay. Sorry, Chris. I told you were going to regret this. Oh my God. Okay, so this truss design drives me crazy. Sorry, Blunty, 1 second. Like, if you have to repair the truss because you crashed it, which that happens, when you got to remove a jillion screws to get the top off, and then when you get the top off, it kind of keeping it all together is a pain in the ass. I don't know. Go ahead, Blunty.
Oh, I was just going to say, it looked like there was another version under that was newer, maybe, but it was hard to tell. Maybe a V2.
Yeah, I think it's updated because Chris does a million versions of all of his frames. Here's the V5. V1, V5. I mean, it's nice that he iterates, but I've heard people being like, Chris, could you stop? I can't get spare parts because I have no idea what version I'm on. So it's pretty cool, and it is a 10-inch frame. I would cringe to have to live with it and to build it because I just am fundamentally opposed to this style of truss design, and that's who I am as a person, and it makes me a bad person. It makes me a worse person that I don't have the fortitude to build this frame. And I'm okay with that. I don't have to prove anything to anybody except my wife. She's upstairs.